Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar session on the topic From Fear to Fearlessness. It's my honor to introduce Shri Lakshmi Narayan ji, our host and guest speaker for today from Vedanta Academy. Vedanta means culmination of knowledge. It is an ancient Indian philosophy which answers the fundamental questions of life. Lakshmi Narayan ji is a senior disciple of Swami Partha Sarthi. He regularly organizes public lectures and seminars. He has been conducting Vedanta study classes over 2 decades in India and abroad. For the first 30 minutes, Swamiji will share his wisdom on the topic, and the next 30 minutes have kept for question and answer session with the audience. If you have any question during the presentation, please type them into the question and answer chat window at the bottom panel, and your question will be answered during the question and answer session by Swamiji. Request you all keep your mic on mute during the entire session. Please press raise your hand icon at the bottom panel if you talk during question and answer session with Swamiji. Now over to Swamiji. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Tarana, and good morning, everyone. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. So today we will be discussing on this topic, fear to fearlessness. Now, during this COVID situation, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty. The environment outside is also very toxic. People are all really scared, especially in cities like Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. And so this attempt by MPS to do this session on pan-India basis. So we thought the first session could be on moving from fear to fearlessness. Now, generally, the whole thing like Taruna introduced, Vedanta, the subject Vedanta is nothing but knowledge of life and living. And Matthew Arnold talks about life as a mystery. He says life is an arrow shot from darkness, flutters in light for a while and disappears into darkness. Somebody I saw had raised their hand. Is it because they're not able to hear me? What is it? I don't understand.
No, sir. They have just
okay,
said hi to you.
Yes, I see. Okay. So Matthew Arnold says, life is an arrow shot from darkness, flutters in light for a while and disappears into darkness. Where do we come from? Where do we go? What are we doing here? What is the purpose of life? How to live our life? We seem to be in darkness. We really don't know how to function. So this subject, Vedanta, teaches us the technique of living, how to live. That's what Vedanta talks about. So the whole thing is, without understanding how to live, we are all rushing into living. So Alexander Pope says, for fools rush in where angels fear to tread. We are born, we see our predecessors running to simply acquire and enjoy. To acquire and enjoy, they just want to maximize their intelligence. So they think that with their intelligence, they can acquire more, and they take acquisition for granted, and they think once they've acquired enough, they will be able to enjoy. This is how everybody is living. So we also think that life means we need to just keep running, and merely acquire, aggrandize, and we take enjoyment for granted. But is that so? Is that all life is? How to live? What is life? Nobody seems to ask this question. The fundamental question that we need to ask is, what is life? How to live? What is this living? When we say living is a technique. It's an art. Once you go into a golf course, it looks simple when you see them play, but it is not as simple as you see it. It's very, very technical. You need to learn the technique, and then tremendous focus and attention is required. Too much of control is required to play the game of golf, or for the matter, playing violin. So therefore, living life also looks simple. We think we don't need any training to eat. We don't need any training to sleep. So we think we can live. But that's not true. We need to understand what is life, what is living. So therefore, the question, what is life? Vedanta answers as Anubhava Dhara. Anubhava means experiences, Dhara means stream. Stream of experiences or flow of experiences is life. So one unit of life would be one experience. And what is one experience constituted of? You, the individual, and the world. When you, the individual, contacts the world, then there is life. So you are contacting the world. So there are two ingredients when we talk about life. You, the individual, and the world. Now, without understanding what the world is all about, without understanding who you essentially are, how are you going to live? We have simply gathered some intelligence about extracting wealth from this world. But we haven't really understood what this world is all about. Neither have we understood who we essentially are. Without this knowledge, when we contact this world, we are bound to suffer. This is exactly what is happening. See, in Tamil, there is this literature called Tirukkural. Beautifully, Thiruvalluvar says, Enni tuniga karumam, tuninda pin ennuvam என்பது இழுக்கு. Which means, think and plunge. Enni tuniga karumam. Before you plunge into doing anything, think. A wise person is one who stops and thinks. He pauses and ponders before plunging, isn't it? An unwise person would be somebody without thinking, simply mechanically plunging. So without really asking this fundamental question as to who am I really and what is this world, without understanding these fundamental things in life, if we plunge in life, we will suffer. So enni tuniga karumam, tuninda pin ennuvam என்பது இழுக்க. After having entered, if I think that I will sit and think about it, I'll deal with it later, that's not the right way to function. So the right way to function is pause and ponder what is life. If life is Anubhava Dhara, then one Anubhava is the individual meeting the world. Then I need to understand who this individual is and what this world is. These are fundamental questions that we need to ask, we need to understand, and then we need to contact. So if our contact is underlined by knowledge, then we will have upper hand. If not, we will suffer. This is exactly what is happening in majority of the cases. Nobody seems to have any time to stop and think, to ask these fundamental questions. Simply plunge. So therefore, the first thing we need to understand is, who is this you, the individual? The individual, the human being, is composed of matter and spirit. You, me, and all of us are a combination of spirit and matter. Matter by itself is insentient. But when spirit contacts the matter or matter contacts the spirit, then the so-called insentient matter becomes sentient. So spirit plus matter is the individual, you and me. The spirit is what here I've written as self, S-E-L-F, the individual, the self. The self is composed of the physical body, the mind, the intellect. So when the self functions through the body is housed with organs of perception and organs of action. So when the self functions through the body, you become the perceiver, perceiving various sense objects. And when the self functions through the body, through the organs of action, you execute various actions through your body. And the same self, when it functions through the mind, which is the seat of emotions, feelings, you become a feeler, feeling various emotions. And the self functions through the intellect, which is a reasoning faculty, discriminating faculty. You reason out, discriminate, and function as a thinker. So you are a perceiver, actor, feeler, thinker when the self functions through the body, mind, and intellect. So this individual is a perceiver, is an actor, is a feeler, is a thinker. So at various times, these are the functions we are involved in. And this human being is contacting the world. And what is the world? World is made up of objects, emotions, and thoughts. OET, you can say. Objects, emotions, and thoughts. And this world is not a static millennium. It is a constant flux of change. It's constantly changing. Everything is uncertain. That which is born will have to die. That which dies will recycle, resurface. The manifestation, unmanifestation. This whole world is manifestation and unmanifestation. Now, in this part of the world, we are awake. In some other part of the world, people are asleep. So manifest and unmanifest. This is how the world is. So that which manifested, after a while, will go back to unmanifestation. That which is unmanifest now, after a while, will come back to manifestation. It's all constantly changing. It's not a static millennium. Now, in this world, which is constantly changing, when the individual is meeting the world, the outcome of such a contact could be profit, loss, heat, cold, honor, dishonor, joy, sorrow. The individual will be constantly exposed to what is called as the pairs of opposites, dvandvas. So another name for the world in Vedantic term is, in Sanskrit, it's called dvandvas, means pairs of opposites. Everybody's life is full of these pairs of opposites. Heat and cold, pleasure and pain, joy and sorrow, honor and dishonor, censure, praise. This is how our experiences of this world will be. Now, the interesting thing is, what is pleasure today may itself turn into pain tomorrow. For example, during summer, when you switch on the AC, it is pleasurable. But if you do the same thing during winter, it is painful. So heat and cold becomes pleasure or pain during different times, depending upon the situation. So therefore, the world is a constant flux of change. So when I am contacting the world, my body, mind, intellect contacting the world, the body will go through heat and cold. Mind will go through joy and sorrow. And intellect will go through honor and dishonor. But the problem is, I expect this world to be a constant millennium. But that's not how it is designed. It is going to throw challenges. So we fall into crisis, what we call as crisis. Every time the situation is not going to be according to what we want it to be. There is nothing wrong in having expectations. Please understand. Our minds will have expectations. There's nothing wrong in having expectations. But our intellect should be clear that it is not necessary that all my expectations will have to be met every time. So there is no harm in having expectations. But I must be very clear that since the world is in a constant flux of change, not necessary that my expectations will always be met. So there will be crisis. That is nothing wrong. There's no problem in crisis. Now, what I need to understand is, I have the option to face the way I want to face it. How do I face the loss? How do I face the heat and cold, honor and dishonor? How do I face the profit? How do I face joy and sorrow? That is entirely in my hands. So, what is happening to us is something that is happening from outside. But how we face it is entirely in my hands. So if I bring in my knowledge from the past, then I face it, I'll be able to face it properly. And when I'm facing it, if I'm afraid of committing a mistake, I will not be able to face it properly. But at the same time, I should make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes. So what is happening to me from outside is something that is external. But how I react to it is something that is internal. So, for example, in today's context, this COVID-19 situation, which is really giving a lot of problem to every one of us across the globe, everybody is suffering. And especially in India now, with this second wave, the double mutant, triple mutant, and all that they're talking about coming and really causing havoc. So, this is the virus at the external level. We need to face it as per the doctor's advice, as per the scientific fraternity's advice. But we have the option not to allow this external virus to react with us and create the internal virus. That's a very big problem. And there are different types of internal virus, which I will be talking about. So, many of us, what is happening is, we allow the situation to trigger certain emotions from within. And then we suffer mentally with worries and anxieties. What is happening outside is common to everyone. But how we react is unique to everyone. That depends on our inner strength, inner immunity. COVID-19 situation being same, how each one of us face it, that is entirely in our hands. So the first thing we need to understand is, we as human being is the small circle and the world is the big circle. We are living in this world, we are born in this world, we exist in this world, we perish in this world. So world is the big circle and we are that small circle. The small circle should align with the big circle. The small circle should not fight with the big circle. When the small circle fights with the big circle, then there is heat, then there is friction, then there is agitation. See, when you see these people who surf, they carry their surfing board with them and they are going into the sea. They go a little far away and then they ride over the waves. So when they do that, all the waves that they come, they don't fight against it. They don't fight with it. They beautifully go underneath that and come out. And then when they go to a certain distance and they see this wave, they ride over it. They come along with it. So similarly, we need to understand that we as individuals should align, not fight with it. The problem is, the moment we fight, we think in terms of extracting from the world. We think in terms of manipulating. We think in terms of conquering it. Then the problem comes. So the first thing we need to understand is, we are the small circle, the world is the big circle, and whatever challenges the world throws, we have the option to face it with the right attitude. If you are entering the ocean and you're going to fight with the wave, obviously you will get tired. You will be beaten black and blue by the waves. But if you learn not to fight with it, not to resist, so therefore, when you contact the world, you have the option to contact the world with the mind per se or with the intellect. Intellect is the discriminating faculty, reasoning faculty. Mind is impulses, desires. So I may have certain desires, nothing wrong, but I need to align my desires with the world. If I don't align my desires with the world, then I'll fight with the world. Then what will happen is, when the world doesn't satisfy my desires, I will be agitated, disturbed. This is why I said there's nothing wrong in having expectations, but to expect your expectations to be met all the time, then there is something wrong. So therefore, world is the big circle, I am the small circle. I need to align with the world So when I understand this, then I will not try to change the world. I'll try to change myself. So Rumi says, yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I am wise, so I am changing myself. Reforming the world is like straightening a dog's tail, says Swami Ramtirtha. Now we will overcome this COVID-19 situation. Then something else will come. We had faced tuberculosis, we had faced cholera, we had faced economic crisis, we had faced all kinds of issues, isn't it? Countries fighting with countries, and then devastations happening as a result of that. All kinds of things, people keep facing crisis. World will throw one crisis after another. But it is our responsibility to insulate us. And how do you insulate yourself? You insulate yourself with this knowledge. When we face this world without knowledge of ourselves and without knowledge of the world, then there is fear. When we face the world with knowledge, either directly or vicariously, either we ourselves know or we surrender to somebody who we know. So then we face this world with knowledge, then the world will not give us fear. We will fearlessly contact. A batsman is able to fearlessly meet the bowler who is bowling at 145, 150 speed, 150 speed, 150 miles or kilometers, I don't remember now. That's the speed they bowl. And these guys, happily they face it. Why? Because they are constantly observing. They watch. They know from the way he holds the ball, whether it's going to be an in-swinger or an out-swinger. What is the line? What is the length? He's constantly observing, facing. Then accordingly, he creates a distance between him and the ball. He either moves forward or goes backward or sideways, and then he just directs the ball. So when you know, when you understand, when you stand apart, when you become objective, when you are watchful, when you are aware, when you are clearly discriminating, analyzing, and contacting the world, you will not be afraid of the world. You will understand how things are, and accordingly you will deal with it. When you go to the zoo, you understand the animals. You love every animal. You love the tiger, you love the deer, you love snake, everything. But since you understand their nature, you go closer to the deer, but you never go closer to the tiger, though you love them both equally. Why? Because of clear understanding. So similarly, when we are gaining this knowledge about the world and about ourselves, and then we align ourselves with the world and then contact the world, then we will not have fear. We will not allow the internal virus called the fear to come in. So there is nothing wrong. You will deal with this virus, you will conquer this COVID-19. Tomorrow there will be something else coming. But we should make sure that this external virus doesn't trigger the inner virus. And what are the inner viruses? Firstly, this term virus in computer language, they use this term virus. What does that mean? It means vital information resource under siege. When the virus attacks the computer, all the vital information stored in the computer is under siege. Similarly, the moment we panic, many people die of fear of pandemic than just because of pandemic. That's the truth. People have become mentally disturbed. They've allowed the situation to take over them. They are mentally disturbed. They have allowed the virus to enter their system. The virus called the fear I'm talking about, not the COVID-19 virus. So once that fear enters, anger, desire, if you see on the screen, I've written all these viruses. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsarya, Vaya. Desire, anger, greed, delusion, arrogance, jealousy, fear. These are the viruses. And especially in this context of COVID-19, it's the fear. Once that takes over, and that's it. Once that takes over, I'm completely shattered. I've allowed the external virus to trigger the inner virus. And when the fear takes over, I can't think properly. When I can't think properly, I can't act properly. When I can't act properly, I will definitely be not successful. And that will create more agitation. And then I'll get into this vicious cycle. So it's extremely important to make sure that we don't allow this fear to take over. And majority of us have allowed the fear to take over. Hence, we are addressing that topic today. So what kind of fear we have today? The fear we have today is loss of job or loss of business. Now, what is job? Is job more important or being employable more important? If a person is always employable, he or she is not afraid of losing the job. I remember my educational background is in the field of engineering. And I was working in an organization before studying this Vedanta. I had to go for 3 years full-time study. So I gave up my job and went to study. So many of my friends, relatives, well-wishers, they were saying, what are you doing, man? You're quitting the job and going to study this Vedanta for 3 years. Do you know what will happen to you after 3 years? Who will provide you the job? What will happen? How will you survive? I didn't know how to answer them that time, but now I know. So what is important is to be employable. You are not employable when your confidence is low, in spite of all your intelligence, in spite of all your skill, in spite of all your experience. If your confidence is low, you are not employable. What happened to Arjuna in the Mahabharata? He had the skill, he had the experience, he had the intelligence, he had everything, but he had lost the confidence. So he could not face it. Thankfully, he, surrendered to Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna gave him that knowledge. With that knowledge, he was able to face the challenge because his inner confidence was, rekindled rather. So job, what is this job? This job is something that you deserve through your education and your confidence, with which you go into the world to give, not to take. Today, the problem is, I want the job to take. That's my attitude. When my attitude is to take, I will be scared. When my attitude is to give, there is no fear. Similarly, with loss of wealth. What is this wealth? Wealth is just a commodity that I exchange for the worldly objects. And then when I contact it, I get the pleasure. So wealth is for transactional purpose. Now all your assets, example, your cars, they are sitting in the garage. It doesn't matter what model it is, how expensive they are. They're just sitting in the garage. It's of no use. So wealth is only for your transactional purpose. Wealth is for your sake. You are not for the wealth's sake. So when you clearly discriminate like this, similarly, loss of a family member. And even when you say losing a family member, what is triggering the problem is my family member. And the joys associated with that, I will be losing. So the whole thing finally comes to me. The more the me in your life, the greater the fear. Remember this. So the loss of job, loss of wealth, losing the family member, pain of suffering that is associated with this disease, and then the loss of life of oneself. Ultimately, if you analyze, what is your fear? The fear is losing your life. And losing the life of people with whom your my is attached. The me and mine, that causes fear. So wherever there is this possessiveness, wherever there is this attachment, you suffer. So therefore, these are the things that people are afraid of. Hence, we need to analyze what is the cause of the fear. What causes fear? Ignorance causes fear. When you have to go into an unknown territory, there is fear, isn't it? The fear of unknown, uncertainty, ignorance, that causes fear. And the other thing that causes fear is otherness. When you have a feeling of oneness with somebody, there is no fear. But you don't identify with them. Like you go to Africa and you see a human being there who's so tall and dark and, full of muscle, get scared. You come back to your country, you're comfortable because there is this oneness. There is no oneness there. Therefore, there is fear. The fear is caused by otherness. And the other thing I was talking about was that selfishness, egocentric, me, mine, attachment and possessiveness. When you are too much attached and dependent, there is fear. Remember this. Anything in life should not overtake you. You should not become mentally dependent on it, whether it is job, whether it is wealth, whether it is people, whether anything for that matter. Even duties and responsibilities. These duties and responsibilities you created. They are not above your peace. Please understand. You can't allow the duties and responsibilities which you created to feast on your peace of mind. It's not a sensible way of living. So duties and responsibilities should be subservient to me, not the other way around. In fact, many people, what happens is they created these duties and responsibilities and then they conquer their life. They have no time for anything else. They become dependent on it. The moment you put yourself in a dependent condition, in any situation, you will suffer. You will go through fear. The fear of losing will be there because you're attached. Similarly, you should understand wealth is for my survival purpose. I created it. And even if I lose it, if I can save myself, I can create more wealth. But if I protect the wealth and I lose myself, what is the use? So wealth is something that is external, which is something that I created. I have the potential to create it. But I must make sure that I don't lose myself. So I should not become dependent on it. And a person who is destructive in nature, vis-a-vis the constructive category of person, a person who is destructive will be more agitated and afraid. A lizard on the wall, which is constantly destroying mosquitoes, if I tap on this table here, the lizard will run because it's constantly destroying. So this is what I was saying. When you're constantly thinking of extracting, as if all your degrees and post-graduations and, everything that you have got in life, experience, everything is meant to extract this world. Instead of thinking in terms of contributing, what I can give. See, in Mahatma Gandhi's life, it is said during the time when they were fighting for Indian freedom, in the northern frontier, few people were taking up to weapons. So Mahatma Gandhi wanted to go and talk to them to tell them to give up the weapons and fight with him through ahimsa, non-violence. So people advised him, don't go to them. They are, they're very hardcore. They won't listen to you. He said, nothing doing. I'm going to go and talk to them. So when he went there, they asked him, are you not afraid? He said, what kind of a question are you asking at me? You're asking me, am I afraid? Actually, you guys are afraid. I said, what do you mean? Look at me. I'm here even without a shirt. I don't have a shirt. There's no shirt. And forget bulletproof. Even shirt is not there. Whereas you guys are carrying the weapons. So now you tell me, who is afraid? Is the question he asked. And they said, Immediately they became his followers. They gave up the weapons and became his followers. The leader of them is called the Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. He was later on called as Frontier Gandhi. So they were scared. They were holding onto the weapons. Mahatma Gandhiji was not afraid. Why? Because he has surrendered to a larger cause. When you don't have a larger purpose in life, when you don't have a larger cause in life, your only cause of existence is to merely acquire and enjoy, nothing more. You will be afraid. I can't help it. Nobody can help it. Because you have no purpose. You have no higher purpose. You are only thinking that all your intelligence, your experience, your skill is meant to extract from this world. But if you are like Mahatma Gandhi, if you are like Nelson Mandela, if you are like any other person who is given himself or herself for a cause, for a larger purpose, they use all their intelligence, their skill, their experience to serve the world. And you get up in the morning, you tell yourself that I've got another opportunity to go and give to the world. Prophet Muhammad says, he's best amongst us who's best in repay. If I think that I have an opportunity to repay, then I'm not destructive in nature. Then I'm constructive in nature. When I have such an attitude, I will not have fear. So therefore, I need to understand what causes fear, what kind of fear I'm going through. Then I need to deal with fear finally. First thing is, I need to analyze the cause of my fear. Is it ignorance? Is it otherness? Or is it selfishness and destructive nature? What is it? Having analyzed the cause, I need to eliminate the reasons for the fear. If it is ignorance, I need to gain knowledge, or I need to go to somebody who has knowledge in that field. For example, this COVID-19 situation. I don't have entire knowledge about it. So I go to the doctors and scientific fraternity and then follow the instructions given by them. And they are telling us that prevention is better than cure. Probably there is no cure for this. So you need to prevent yourself. You need to mask up. You need to maintain social distancing. You need to constantly, clean your hands. All those precautionary methods. And if possible, if you can, vaccinate yourself. All these things, they are educating us. So you follow that. If it is otherness, if it is selfishness, if it is destructive nature, you got to think and change yourself. So eliminate the reasons for fear. And then finally, you need to face the fear. You can't run away. If you close your eyes when the cat is sitting in front of you, you close your eyes for 2 years, the cat is going to be feeding itself for 2 years and it will become like a big cat, tiger. So you need to consciously expose yourself to the fear. It has to be a graded exposure with knowledge. So, see, my son, I live in an apartment complex in Delhi. Now, he always used the lift. Now, about 2 years ago, I saw him not using the lift. I thought he's probably, conscious of his health or something. Then I asked him, he said, no, nothing like that. I just don't want to use the lift. He was going on avoiding. Then I came to know that few days before, he was stuck in the lift for about 5 minutes. And that caused him fear. So then I explained to him whatever I knew, how this whole thing works. And then I said, come with me. Let's go from second floor to first floor in the lift. I am there with you. And slowly, a conscious graded exposure brought him out of that fear. And then last but not the least, we need to work on the fundamentals. We flout the fundamentals. That's the problem. The truth is, no selfish person will be secure. No unselfish person will be insecure. It's the law of life. So if I give into fundamentals, if I am dependent, I will suffer. It doesn't matter how much knowledgeable I am. So in all situations, I should try not to become mentally dependent. So if in my building, if there are lifts, fine. but sometimes the lifts may not work, so I should not become dependent on it. Not only when the lifts are not functioning, even sometimes when it's functioning, I'm not in an urgency to go anywhere. I can use the staircase at least to go down, if not to come up. So the more and more I develop this value, not to become dependent, I will become free from the fear. The more and more I put myself in the situation of dependence, I will have to suffer. So when I start taking care of the fundamentals, when I boost up my inner immunity, then I can remain fearless. And finally, it is the intellect over mind, not the mind over the intellect. When the mind is over the intellect, you will be afraid. When the intellect is over the mind, you will be fearless. And what do we mean by intellect over the mind? Intellect clearly analyzes the situation. And then it analyzes and comes to conclusion how much of it is under my control, how much of it is not under my control. This is beautifully summed up by this prayer, serenity prayer. It says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. What is something which is not under my control? I must have the serenity to accept that. Then I must have the courage to change the things I can, to put in the efforts to change it, and the wisdom to know the difference between what I can change and what I cannot. And this comes under that information that I talked about, big circle and small circle. What as a small circle is under my influence? What is not under my influence? When I understand that, when I start focusing on things I can change, I will start making a lot of difference in my life. I can move from fear to fearlessness. So therefore, we need to constantly strengthen the intellect, not the mind. And as a tip, I would say, during this pandemic situation, or generally also, do not allow the negativity to enter into your system. Why you want to allow the negativity and then deal with it? You know, you have this security. Every time I come to your MPS office in Noida, of course, they don't ask many questions to me because they've been seeing me coming there once a month, almost for a few years now. But still, they stop and check. Okay, then they see me, they say, okay, go in. So there's somebody checking in, giving the pass and allowing them inside, or saying, sorry, park your car outside, write down, let me find out if you are allowed to go inside. They do all that checkup, right? But when it comes to this, our life, all kinds of negativities. Just because you are sitting at home now, because of everybody is working from home, you switch on the television and go on listening to these inputs which are so negative. You don't need too much information. Yes, you understand there is a situation like this. We need to be careful. But if you go on listening, so many people died, oxygen is not there, this is you get into the panic mode. So cut all the negativities. Not only during this time, generally also. Negative is so entertaining, but it bothers you, it affects you. You need to constantly feed on positivity. Got to tell yourself what is good for me, not what is pleasing. So you need to make this choice between what is pleasing and what is good. What we call as Preya and Shreya. Preya means what is pleasing to you. Shreya means what is good for you. So you need to constantly ask this question with your intellect. What is good for me, not what is pleasing to me. When I can start working on these fundamentals and start becoming independent more and more, strengthening my intellect, I can move from fear to fearlessness. So with this, I conclude today's session. If you have any questions, please do ask.
Hi everyone, please raise your hand if you want to talk to Swamiji.
Hello, Swamiji. Good
Yes,
afternoon.
yes, good afternoon.
So, seeing the scenario right now due to COVID pandemic surge is in Delhi or nearby. So, after working, what should we aim to do to calm down or relax, seeing everybody there? So, the outside scenario is not quite good. So, how do we there's a lot of stress if we watch TVs or something. So, what's the next thing we should do
Just
to
switch off your TV and
stay calm?
WhatsApp. Only WhatsApp positivities you see. All negatives just cut down. Secondly, physically and mentally, you need immunity. So for physical immunity, you need to have vitamins. You need to have, little exercises. Now you're not supposed to go out. So what you can do is you can follow yoga and pranayam, especially this disease. It attacks your lungs. So pranayama and yoga is very good. So you can follow yoga for about half an hour, 45 minutes every day, and pranayama for like 20 minutes or so. So that will help you. And secondly, healthy food. And then, since you are at home, use this as an opportunity to spend time with your children and share responsibilities with your spouse. You know, discuss things which can improve your lifestyle. In what ways? Now, especially because of this situation, now the servants are not able to come. The maids cannot come. So okay, fine. You can start physically doing that work. So that will also give you a positive diversion. So utilize the time in those ways, and then instead of listening to these television channels and all that, if at all you need to do that, do it for half an hour or 10 minutes or so. That also don't do it at night. Just before going to bed, if you listen to all these kind of things, then you will not be able to sleep properly. And that disturbed sleep will also cause a lot of problems.
Swamiji,
So
we will look
therefore,
forward for further
pardon?
session with you in days to come.
Pardon? Hello? Can you hear me? Can you hear
Yeah,
me?
we can.
Yeah, okay. So the point is, you should first of all avoid watching television at night and spend more time. And I don't know whether you watch cricket now. Somebody was arguing with me that do we need IPL at this time? I said, yeah, listen, you look at it differently. At least people are having a positive diversion. Temporarily, don't think about it. Why you want to think about it? All you need to do is don't go out unless and until it is necessary. And if you go out, mask up, social distancing, all that they're trying to tell you, follow that. Firstly, if you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. This is what they're saying, right? Be safe. And then whatever little you need to listen to, do it in the morning, not in the night. Never. And read things which are positive. Spend time reading good things in life. Or if you had some passion which you didn't have time to do in the past because you have to go to work, now since you are working from home and if you find that you have little extra time because your traveling time and everything is saved, then give in to that passion, whether it is painting or gardening or whatever it might be. Give in to those kind of things and spend time, quality time with your family. A lot of people, they say quality time means sitting and watching a movie with popcorn. That is not quality time. Literally, physically playing with your children. And those kind of things, when you do, you will rejuvenate yourself mentally also. If you do all that, then you will be fine. But definitely cut down the negative and introduce a lot of positives into it. Knowledge, healthy habits, physical exercises, and quality time. These kind of things, if you do, you will be fine.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Any other questions?
Swamiji, namaste. I wanted to just ask for the benefit of the group also. Amidst all this fear, which is easier said than done, what will be your guidance around trying to find a purpose, Swamiji?
See, the purpose of life is to live your life. Don't think too much. The purpose of life is to live your life. Living means being in the present 100%. Now, this session we are having from 11 to 12. In this 11 to 12, how much of the time you were here, physically and mentally? If you were mentally here for half an hour, you lived in this room for half an hour. If you are mentally here for 1 hour, then you lived in this room for 1 hour. So, being in the present, which means the intellect controlling the mind. So, we need to strengthen our intellect. And how do you do that? By constantly exercising and eating nutritious food, we strengthen our muscles. Similarly, by constantly exercising our intellect, thinking, questioning, and giving it nutritious thoughts, we strengthen the intellect. So therefore, we need to have a programmed approach in our life, and early morning time is good for strengthening the intellect. So early morning, if you have to get up, you've got to go to bed as early as possible. So at the same time, you cannot afford to compromise on your sleep. Everybody must necessarily sleep for at least 7 hours, they say. So try and go to sleep as early as possible. Spend about 7 hours to 8 hours in sleep, and then get up and start reading good book and reflect on them. It's not just reading. Reflect, think, and then give a little exercise to your body, yoga, pranayama, and all that. And then give into healthy food habits. And if you are a believer of God or so, you can give into a little bit of prayer, etc. So by this way, you'll have a proper program on a daily basis to strengthen your intellect. And when you do this, over a period of time, you will see that you'll be able to live your life 100% with awareness. And when you live with awareness, you will not commit mistakes, or even if you commit mistakes, you will not repeat them. So I would say the purpose of life is to simply live your life, which means to strengthen the intellect.
Thank you very much, Swamiji.
You're welcome.
Swamiji, Niranjan Singh has a question. What
Yes.
is the difference between psychological and physical fear, and how to handle these fear to conquer them?
Fear is psychological. It may have certain physical effect. When you see, there may be somebody having a gun and trying to shoot you, actually, or there may be nobody having a gun trying to shoot you. But if you start believing that there is somebody with a gun to shoot you, you will have the same effect as somebody having a gun at you and actually trying to shoot you. So the fear is something that is psychological. It's not physical. Eventually, it may have effect on your body. You will have nervous breakdown. You will not be able to sleep properly. You know, your heart is pumping. All kinds of things may happen eventually. So therefore, you need to understand that fear it's an emotion. Fear means emotion. It's a weak emotion. So when the emotion takes over, it starts attacking your body also. Your body will have all kinds of issues. You may not be able to go off to sleep when you are afraid. You know, your body will be secreting certain chemicals which is going to bother you. All these kind of things will happen. So fear is always psychological, not physical. How to deal with it, I already talked about it.
Anyone want to ask question? You may ask.
How can we restrict the desire? Pankaj Das. You don't restrict the desire, you direct the desire. See, you should not indulge nor deny. Denial will also increase, indulgence will also increase. So the way to deal with the desire is to direct. How do you deal with water? By properly constructing a dam and directing it, channelizing it. Similarly, you got to direct your desires with your intellect by giving it a goal, a higher direction in life. So you got to surrender your desire for a larger purpose. So for example, when you come into work, right now you're working in this organization called MPS. So you should see how your skills and everything can be utilized for the betterment of that organization. Now when you go home, how your skills and everything can be used for the betterment of your home. So like that, when you give a direction to your desire, you rise, otherwise you fall. So never restrict your desire. Restricting will only increase it further.
Swamiji, one question.
Yeah.
The people is okay to keep coming and keep discussing about the work-life balance. This is an ongoing, the kind of the tough time. So in your words, what is the definition and explanation of the work-life balance? Because everybody's having their own perception and own, the kind of thought towards the work-life balance. What you will say about it?
See, your life will be balanced when your mind is under the control of your intellect. Where your life will not be balanced if your intellect is under the control of the mind. Remember that. Mind is your friend when it is under the control of your intellect. Mind is your enemy when it is controlling the intellect. Simple. So if you do not have intellect, you will be giving it your mind, and mind will go in all directions. So obviously there will be no balance. You understand? Now mind means likes and dislikes. So you'll be spending more time in what you like. Then you will be not be having enough time to spend on what is good for you. You like to watch TV, especially like I said, IPL is going on. Now, if you spend too much time, sometimes they have 2 matches in a day, and they end at about 10:30, 11. I don't know what they end. Around that time they end. I do watch some of the matches, but when I am sleepy, I just go off to sleep. I am not going to somehow stress myself to watch it. And next day morning, I have to get up and do my little bit of study and, do all that. Even for this session, even though I've been giving lectures for so many years, I still prepare specifically to that particular audience, So I will have balance if I bring my mind under my intellect. If my mind is not under the control of my intellect, I will have no balance. Forget work life. I will have no balance in anything. Because finally, what is the problem? Why there is no balance? Because I'm spending more time into things which I like, not what I'm supposed to do. I don't like to exercise, but I like to watch TV. I don't like to read good books. I like to gossip. So I start losing balance in my life. So the moment I bring intellectual control over my mind, then I will be able to find balance. So work-life balance and everything will come the more and more I start developing my intellect. And in the process to develop the intellect, we always say exercise the intellect, and even as an aid for that, yoga and pranayama will help, because in yoga and pranayama, you will have to focus and do the exercises. It is not that you watch some news channel and keep exercising. You can't do that. You can probably do that when you're running. You can't do that when you're doing yoga. When you're doing yoga, your intellect, mind, and body has to be in one line. It's an integrated thing. So that will help in strengthening your intellect. But more than yoga and pranayama, you need to start exercising your intellect by asking questions. That is what will strengthen the intellect. That is what will bring about the balance.
Thank you.
Somebody has asked the question, what should be the priority in this pandemic? Health, work, or inner peace? Now, why do you want to give choice between this? Why don't you think all are important? If you just keep on maintaining your health and you don't work, how will you survive? And if you're only working and you don't take care of your health, how will you survive? And if you lose your inner peace and you're terribly agitated, even if you're eating nutritious food, your health will suffer. So why you want to say as though they are all options different? Just now somebody asked this question, balance. So you got to balance. You don't have to be exercising the whole day. You will collapse. So half an hour, 45 minutes in the morning, you exercise and make a proper healthy diet schedule. Every now and then you still need to cater to the taste buds. So every now and then, here and there, use your sense of proportion and take care of your taste buds also. Not necessarily only health all the time. So at least then, you don't get frustrated. Then similarly, work. Out of 24 hours, you can spend about 8 hours maximum, 9 hours on work. And since you are working from home, and I don't know what kind of the nature of work that you are involved in, accordingly, you can split your time and work. And also, all this will be going on fine only as long as your inner peace is maintained. So for your inner peace, whatever you need to do, you should do that as well. So why do you think this is more important or that is more? Nothing like that. All are equally important. If your health goes for a toss, do you think you'll be peaceful? If you're not peaceful, do you think you will exercise and be healthy? They're all interconnected. Don't try to choose between them. Set them in proper priority order and give the proper time and do it. This is how I will do it if I were you. Somebody is asking, does trust play vital role in fear? See, trust when you say, belief when you say, it's not a blind belief or blind trust. It's something that comes with knowledge, with proper analysis, with some corroboratory evidences. So, of course, when there is trust, there is no fear. But what kind of a trust? If I say I trust in God and they just get out of the house and go without mask, will I not contract the virus? Of course I will. So trust doesn't mean blind faith. As long as it's not blind faith, it's okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Swamiji. On the behalf of all MPS employee, I would like to thank you, Swamiji, for very insightful session. The learning of today have made us realize how we as individuals are very much stronger than any fear we may ever face, and not just the current pandemic situation. Swamiji, we will look forward for further session with you in days to come. Dear MPS employee, we will be sharing the detail of next session in days to come. Till then, as Swamiji says, stay fearless and believe in your strength. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.